Good morning, everyone. I'm Crystal Wise. I am an assistant professor at the University of Minnesota. Um, and the title of my presentation is Sometimes You Got to Pop Life and Show 'em. Okay, here we go. Um, so the 1980s was an important time for popular culture and popular music. The popularity of music videos surged, putting artists and their music in homes around the clock, placing artists under the gaze of his audience like never before. Not only could you hear an artist, but you could also see an artist. You could consume a version of the world they painted in their lyrics. Just as our experiences and beliefs shape what we listen to in music, they also color what we see in images. The fact that Billboard begins with its list of greatest pop stars by year with 1981, the year MTV premiered, giving music video a starring role in the making of a pop star, shows the influence and significance of images in pop culture. To be truly seen as a pop star, you are absolutely under the gaze of pop culture. The day-to-day questions of pop culture make us keenly aware of the subjectivity of it all, whether it's why the song you downvoted won Song of the Year, the outrage of an American singer and songwriter winning Best Country Album, or why Kendrick Lamar was selected over Lil Wayne for the 2025 Super Bowl halftime show held in New Orleans, or even at all. This awareness does not escape artists, and if a music recording artist strives for longevity in the music industry, it is important that they are aware of the history of this gaze, the specificity of this gaze that is the white gaze. I'll explain more about this history and what that the white gaze. But first, I'll show how Prince was aware of the white gaze from the start of his career and why it was necessary. Now, the audience at a Pop Life symposium absolutely knows that as a 19-year-old, Prince insisted on being in control of his music. In fact, I bet it's one of the top factors in how we're still here today in 2025 discussing his music. We all know and love to see albums that read produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince. However, despite Prince's gaze being set on his artistry, coming into the music industry, he had to contend with the white gaze. To illustrate, let's recall that I mentioned Billboard's greatest pop star by year from 81-24 list. Well, we absolutely know, and I know that you know, who's on the coming in for 1984. That's right. So the writers of the list start their description of Prince by asking, who is this kid? Right. And it captures the narrative or right, that was of the time from the music world that questioned and wondered about this unknown wonder kid from Minneapolis who could produce, arrange, compose, and play all the instruments when he first set out, as we saw in 78 with For You. Well, they then go on to state that 6 years, and this is the quote, 6 years and six albums later, Prince laid to rest any further questions, letting the entire country know exactly who he was with the essential and quintessential Purple Rain. The June 84 release dynamically showcased the Purple One's formidable skill set as an innovative and fearless songwriter, producer, musician, and singer. End quote. Now, despite entering the music industry with an incredible amount of talent in multiple areas, it was a long road for Prince to receive the level of recognition his talents deserve. And I'm sure many of us here today will argue he still hasn't. But as we know, validation is not needed nor necessary for truth. But this is why I liken the first 7 years, the first seven albums of Prince's career to the academic tenure process. His first six albums can be seen as his probationary period, the period of time an institution collects evidence, right, that will decide if an employee should be granted an indefinite appointment that can be terminated only for cause or under extraordinary circumstances. That's how tenure is described. And so during the early years of his career, Prince played the game of getting promoted to tenure while also alluding to his awareness of the presence of the white gaze in his life and his position in popular culture as a recording artist. For example, on his 1980 song Uptown, he sings, "She saw me walking down the streets of your fine city. I didn't mention that I'm sick, but that's not why that sounds bad. And is why I will stop. I sing anyway, but I won't one time to, that's probably not what I want recorded. But nevertheless, I just want to put these lyrics in your mind, and I want you to hold them there while we turn to look at, right, the explanation I promised of the white gaze and the historicizing of the presence of it in American popular culture. So, extending back to the earliest form of American popular culture, we find minstrel shows. Now, minstrel shows place the anti Black imagination of white Americans on full display, with white audiences choosing to be and enjoying being entertained by white men who color their faces Black while performing songs, dance, and comedy to mock the dialect and physical features of Black people and depict them as lazy, incapable, lacking intelligence, or will. Now, within this history, there were some Black people who also engaged in blackface and similar performances to make a living. So, therefore, we can understand that American popular culture, like every other institution, is racist, and more specifically, it is and has always been anti Black. We can go to works from Arriga in 2019 and Mueller and colleagues in 2018 to see more recent works on this. So for Black entertainers who have come since, who have endeavored to create for and entertain American audiences and given the reach of American popular culture world audiences, they do so under the dehumanizing and violent gaze of whiteness. The white gaze has been referred to explicitly and explicitly and implicitly by many writers, thinkers, and artists. And because of its pervasiveness, it's just what Black Americans know. And so Wilkins in 2021 referred to the white gaze as Black bodies under white hegemonic surveillance, which works to reduce their true complex nature down to unrecognizable and unflattering fictional forms, which we saw in the other right? Like, so how it's coming out of this distortion and these caricatures. Fanon notes how under the white gaze, white people's perceptions of Black people, Blackness, is the only one that's valid. And it doesn't matter who you think you are, who you are, what you know you've said and did. These dehumanizing perceptions are fixed under the white gaze and they are inescapable. Now, on the other side of this, it's just that Black people and Black artists know that they are human and that they matter. And so, because they are human, they resist. Um, Allen and Miles conducted a study of 5 cases in which celebrities used their various platforms to unapologetically resist racial oppression. Historically and contemporarily, there have been many instances in which Black artists resist and enact their agency. And Bell Hooks tells us that spaces of agencies exist for Black people, wherein we can both interrogate the gaze of the other, but also look back and at one another, naming what we see. So let's head back to look at Uptown with the understanding that American popular culture is rooted in the appeasement of white audiences. It is racist and anti-Black. As scholars such as Shanta Allen, Brittany Miles, Jennifer Mueller, April Williams, Danielle Dirks, Mariana Riga, and Nancy Yoon have pointed out in their more recent works on race, racism, and popular culture. We can reread the lyrics of Uptown for the presence of the white gaze. Now, in some of my previous work, I've analyzed the woman in Prince, that Prince meets in Your Fine City as an extension of the attitudes of people who inhabit downtown, which also represent, right, this larger oppressive society and their views. Prince describes her attention and her gaze as initially attractive, or in that he's leery of it, but yet kind of curious, as he expresses this as play, a game. This woman represents society, which represents the white gaze, that sees what it wants to see, no matter who you actually are. And we see this, that Prince is tempted to appease by giving a little ear, but ultimately he resists, sensing it's a game, and it's verified that it's a game as she makes assumptions about his and not real, right? Because she makes these assumptions about his sexuality. Um, and we can hear more of this resistance and the analogy that life or popular culture, the music industry is a game. On subsequent albums, for example, on Controversy, Prince insists life is just a game. We're all just the same. Dance music, sex, romance. I don't care to win awards. And I interpret these as Prince's need to reaffirm his humanity and reject his growing presence in popular culture, which is one of the reasons why I chose to title this presentation, Sometimes You Got to Pop Life and Show Them, as a nod to one of the most recent and important displays of resistance to the white gaze, to American popular culture and more music, and more broadly American popular culture, Kendrick Lamar's Apple Music halftime performance.
It was Prince. I promise to play with you.
Well, in Lamar's 2025 performance, we saw actor Samuel L. Jackson welcome us to what to one could argue is a modern day minstrel show, the Super Bowl halftime show. And we saw Lamar do what Alan and Miles um, mentioned earlier, right? So he was very careful in how he showed up to that space. He engaged in unapologetic embodied resistance. And I am speaking to this as if everybody has seen it, which is funny. But not funny, but like because it was so right prevalent, and it's still you're getting pieces and dances to come with it. But anyway, you should go back and see it. I should just say that if you haven't watched it. But anyhow, Miles and Alan, they explain that this form of resistance converts pop cultural spaces into social movement scenes, thus transforming moments of entertainment into opportunities for political mobilization in their work. Now, I can't speak to the transformational aspects of these of the halftime show, or if it actually exists in Prince's work. That's not the analysis that I'm performing, but I am arguing that they are embodied resistance. Now, another connection I see between Lamar's and a Super Bowl halftime show and Prince's release of Around the World in a Day is timing. They were both experiencing a major success in their career. They both used their next platform to address social issues and take on the white gaze. Um, and now also want to note that I'm not comparing the content and trajectories of their careers. Kendrick is easily identifiable as an activist, an artist activist in pop culture. Prince was more so considered groundbreaking and cutting edge, and not during the time in the 80s of regarded as an activist. So nevertheless, I'm drawing attention to the similarities and how these Black artists navigated the white gaze even after being further subjected to it. These moments include, right, Kendrick is coming off his 2024 diss track, Not Like Us, which spawned from his beef with Drake, and Prince on his whole 84 to 85 run with the Purple Rain album, film, and tour. Um, and so Prince also documents for us in his body of work, right? These how he's actually experiencing these in between spaces as he's moving through each of these phases on different albums and accumulating more notoriety. So for example, on Lady Cab Driver, we hear him say, "Don't know where I'm going because I don't know where I've been." He's in these liminal in between spaces, and this and many others can provide clues to that Prince would actually come to reject, right? The white gaze, his pop stardom. As many of you know, Prince's earliest recording of Pop Life was actually before Purple Rain, the album or movie, was released in February of 1984. And so Pop Life, it kind of also follows the structure of commenting on, right, these whether they're interpersonal or these person society conflicts. And on Pop Life, he's noting this conflict between being a rising star and fame and success, um, and similar to how he questions we get questions on Uptown. That similar kind of pattern shows up here on Pop Life, but who's asking these questions and who's answering? Well, if we consider the words from Prince's original draft of Purple Rain, we know that Prince's main objective was not fame. He wrote, Prince wants fame and fortune and everything that goes with it, sure, but most of all, he wants to help people through his music, whether it's a cure for loneliness, a beat to make them dance, or a message that they can better understand themselves. He most of all wants to feel he's done something worthwhile in his life, scoring points with God, I guess. So, in going back to the lyrics of Pop Life with the lens that Prince is and has been aware of the white gaze of popular culture and that fame lures you in, but there are more important things that matter, we can read these lyrics as a resistance. The first stands as a critique of the constant desire or pressure for more when you already have success or wealth. This critique makes sense when you consider Prince was 5 albums in at the time that he first recorded it and experiencing a good deal of success, yet that was still pressure from the music industry, right? For himself or whatever it is, right, under this white gaze to do more. Which is back to my analogy around tenure. Do more to cement your status, to earn the indefinite status of superstar. On the refrain, we hear the struggle of the lure of fame. He's noting how performer and audience is in the web of pop culture together, needing a thrill, and he resists with the ideology that everyone matters because we all got a space to feel. Or we can read this in another way. We feel lonely and need a void, right? Trying to fill a void. But let's choose something of higher value than the products of pop culture. He notes the rules of the game of pop culture with the lines, everybody can't be on top. He knows that this is a losing game because it is a game for winners and losers. For some to be valued and others dehumanized. In particular, in the next lines, he says, pop life, it ain't real funky unless it's got that pop, dig it. We have funky and dig it signaling blackness, black culture. And if we recall, Prince has referred to life and society as a game. In tracks like Uptown and Controversy, we can reinterpret these last lyrics as pop culture and the society we have set up would not be interesting or entertaining without Black people. And at the same time, Prince is acknowledging that American pop culture is predicated on anti-Blackness, as he knows the hierarchy in it. Everybody can't be on top. Means Black artists and pop culture will always be subjugated to whiteness, the white gaze, as stated earlier. Pop culture is rooted in the appeasement of white people. Now, I've always wondered why the person in Prince's cloud suit on the Around the World in a Day album appears to be sad or regretful white person. As a younger person, when I be Princing, when listening is the event and you're going through liner notes and you're listening and you're reading the lyrics and you're totally immersed. Well, in those earlier years, I just thought Prince was being funny and swapping out different bandmates for each other. But we can see as a white presenting person is also riding Miss Raspberry Beret on the back of Prince's bike down by Old Man's Johnson's farm. So, deeper analysis is needed there. But implying the concept of the white gaze and considering Pop Life was written before Purple Rain catapulted Prince into superstardom, I understand that Prince may have been depicting the anti-Blackness within popular culture and that his public image was at risk of losing its racial and cultural identities. It can be also read as him mocking those who thought of him that way for being in the mainstream. Which brings me back to the title of the presentation. Did Prince really pop out and show him with his 7th album, Around the World in a Day? That we can continue to discuss throughout the symposium. I wouldn't say that the album or Pop Life is unapologetically Black as Kendrick Lamar's halftime show, but we are talking about a difference of 40 years. However, it does represent embodied resistance to the white gaze. Prince's gift in embracing and expressing the liminal spaces as he was progressing in the world of pop culture are tools of resistance and protection that we can use ourselves to navigate under the white gaze. Prince understood no matter how high his star rose, he was still playing with us. The music industry saw his artistic output as a tenure process, going from an unknown artist to an artist to watch out for, to a groundbreaking artist, to a superstar, which, as we hear on Pop Life, endanger core values and could cost your soul. Prince stayed steps ahead by anticipating how superstardom would affect his art and his life. And so for me, it is a diss track to fame and music industry. It is addressing the real beef with society, with systemic racism. And I believe it was significant for Prince too, as he coded it as the 7th song on his 7th album in 7 years. Once he reached the industry's tenure status where he couldn't be terminated, or in today's term, canceled. Thank you.